So it's Tuesday, January the 31st, and finally, after 48 whirlwind non-stop hours here in Jeddah, I have a bit of time to sit down and share what we've been doing with you since we arrived. We did arrive a couple of evenings ago, actually, I think the evening of the 29th, and we were able to, after meeting a group of students from Jeddah Prep and Grammar School who travelled out to a desert camp to meet us, we dipped our toes in the Red Sea and so completed our sea-to-sea, coast-to-coast crossing of Arabia in the footsteps of Harry St. John Philby. And a journey that started with Reem and I walking at sunrise on November the 15th as the sun rose over Bahrain and Iran. Our journey ended at sunset, with the sun setting across the Red Sea over Sudan, which lies opposite to us here in Jeddah. And we're all absolutely exhausted, typical of any expedition. If you kept going, you'd be okay, but as soon as you take your foot off the gas, you realise just how tired you are. But despite that tiredness, it's been a very busy 36 to 48 hours since we arrived. And it was inevitably the same for Philby. He arrived here almost on the last day of December in 1917, and he had lots of dignitaries, including Sharif Hussein of Mecca, waiting for him to meet him. And this was a very, very important meeting for Philby. In his book, The Heart of Arabia, Philby wrote, as always, in great detail about their final day of their journey. And he wrote, "A broad upward-sloping glade led us to Mizal, a watchtower in ruins perched on the summit of a low ridge. The hills now thinned out before us to a step-like plain, guarding a low rocky chain surmounted by the guard tower of Raghama. Beyond the tower, out of nothing, rose a narrow strip of blue. Our eyes, long wearied by the endless desert of sand and steppe and rock, rested on the soft horizon of the western sea, and our hearts were glad within us as we hastened on. Among us were a few, including Badr, who had never seen the sea before." From Raghama, where a goodly crowd was gathered about the coffee booths, we looked down upon the coral palaces of Jeddah, enveloped in the midday haze. A vast sandy beach shelved down before us. We were but half a dozen who led the van, the rest were far behind. "More songs," I said to Tommy, "that we may ride the faster," and Tommy opened up with the song of the camp, to which the weariest camel will respond, scenting repose and plentiful fodder at the couching. At length the weary march drew to an end, and at mid-afternoon on the last day of the year we streamed through the Mecca gate, our goal attained, and Arabia crossed from sea to sea. Philby spoke more about what a melting pot of races and creeds and colours Jeddah was, being a seaport opposite Africa, and it's been very apparent to us. The air is very different to the east. The buzz of being in a large city of about 4 million people is very different to the desert for us, but we really do feel next to the sea. Lots of African people wandering around, and people, lots of people I spoke to yesterday from Egypt, from Sudan, from Eritrea. A fantastic hodgepodge of people, which make Jeddah such a wonderfully colourful place. Yesterday was the official welcome, and it couldn't have been in a more beautiful place. Nassif House is one of these old coral buildings to which Philby referred. It's more than 100 years old, perfectly preserved by the Ministry of Culture and the Heritage Commission here, and open as a museum for people to drift in and out to look at how old Jeddah used to be. And it's one of dozens and dozens of old houses amazingly built out of coral that still stand, and there's a huge renovation and preservation project going on, turning a lot of these beautiful old buildings into boutique hotels and, like Nassif House, a wonderful museum. So we were incredibly grateful to our friends at the Ministry of Culture for organising such a fantastic reception yesterday. Lots of media there, lots of dignitaries from the Ministry of Foreign Affairs, Ministry of Culture, the Heritage Commission. So it was a fantastic day. We thought it might last for about an hour, hour and a half, but we were still there 4 hours later, given a tour of old Jeddah, which was absolutely fascinating, wandering the narrow alleyways of the old souk. We were then entertained by the British Consulate here in Jeddah, and we had a wonderful gathering of Saudi and expatriate people from the community here in Jeddah, about 70 to 80 people, squeezed into what is known as the village hall here at the consulate in Jeddah last night, and we were able to very quickly put together some of the images that tell a little bit of the story. Of course, we haven't had enough time to do that properly yet, but it was a wonderful night, a great opportunity for us to say thank you to the countless people that have made this journey and this project happen, and just to be able to share that with some really fascinating people. And nice for the team, for Anna and for Alan and Reem, to hear a lovely message from our patron, Her Royal Highness the Princess Royal, which the Consul General read out to all who were gathered in the room.
Ladies and gentlemen, if I could have your attention, please, and if you'd like to take a seat while you can, we can get started. My name is Cecile El-Beledi, and I'm the British Consul General based here in Jeddah for the Western region of Saudi Arabia. And I'd like to welcome everyone here tonight and to thank you for joining me in welcoming the Heart of Arabia expedition team and extending much-deserved congratulations to them on the achievement of completing their remarkable journey in honour and in the footsteps of Harry St. John Abdullah Philby across this amazing country from Uqayr to the final destination, Jeddah. I think it's true to say that it's not every day, particularly in these modern times, that we talk about an expedition. For me, the word conjures up feelings of excitement, embarking on a worthy journey, facing unique challenges, drawing on human courage and comradeship, and of course, leaving a legacy of understanding and research for the long-term benefit of humanity. I would venture to say that this is what has been achieved by the Heart of Arabia team. Mark, Anna, Alan and Reem, Philby's granddaughter, meets those exacting standards. This has been an incredible endeavour. Across 1,300 kilometres of a vast, almost empty landscape of shifting sands and climate extremes, a true test of human resilience and determination. Guided by Philby's meticulous journals, this expedition has offered an invaluable second opportunity to deepen our understanding of Saudi Arabia, engage again with resilient communities living in remote and extreme landscapes, proud of their heritage and traditions, no doubt with fabulous stories to tell, curious and warmly hospitable to those rare visitors who take the time to pass by, to stop and to listen. But it has also utilised the opportunity to conduct wider scientific research, and I hope that we will be able to hear more about that later. I have to say as well that news has travelled far and wide, and the Princess Royal has asked me to pass on her congratulations to all the participants and their support teams for successfully finishing the Heart of Arabia trans-peninsular journey. Her Royal Highness is well aware what a demanding feat this was and congratulates the organisers and participants. The Princess Royal would also like to thank the supporters of the expedition who made this journey possible. Her Royal Highness looks forward to receiving a full report on the journey when you get back. Finally, Confucius said, "Study the past if you would divine the future." For UK-Saudi relations, this expedition has tangibly managed to successfully fuse the past with the present, which can only bode well for our future together. Thank you very much for coming.
So what became of Philby when he reached Jeddah? Remember the bigger picture, that he was travelling under the protection of Ibn Saud to prove to Ibn Saud that he had the loyalty and the allegiance of the tribes in the central regions of Arabia. Clearly, the other contender for the throne of Saudi Arabia was Sharif Hussein of Mecca, who resided in Jeddah. This was his stronghold, and Sharif Hussein would not allow Philby to return to Riyadh overland. He forbade such a journey, which was a frustration for Philby because he'd left some of his belongings in Taif and in Riyadh. So Philby's journey overland was up. And really, he moved on at this point to the next stage of his extraordinary life. But he didn't do so before describing a little bit more about his time in Jeddah. And he said, "Within the city is a truly eastern jumble of wealth and poverty. Great mansions of the captains of commerce and enterprise, with their solid coral walls and wide expanses of woodwork tracery, side by side with hovels broken and battered by age. Mosques great and small, with pointed minarets tapering skyward amid masses of vast square buildings, and crowded bazaars with their lines of dark shops protected from the sun by central roofs, here of wood and canvas, much the worse for wear, and there of corrugated iron. Everywhere a contrast of light and shadow, splendour and squalor, dust and dirt, and above it all flew the flags of many nations amid the countless emblems of a united Arabia. At length my time in Jeddah came to an end, and on the afternoon of the 14th of January 1918 the companions of my desert journey from Riyadh accompanied me to the wharf side, whence, with their last words of farewell ringing in my ears, and with but slender hopes of seeing them again, I launched out on a steam cutter lying in the outer harbour to take Commander Hogarth and myself to Egypt. It was not for this that I had come forth, but there was no appeal from the king's decree. So Philby was taken to Egypt, and he spent time in Cairo, which he loved, described Cairo as the most wondrous city. And then it was felt that really, having spent so much time within Central Arabia, he needed to be a bit more aware of what was going on in the Greater War. So from Cairo, he sailed to Damascus, and from Damascus he was able to return to where he started in Basra, but had to do so by a mail ship via Bombay. So there was no such thing as fast travel in those days. So Philby had plenty of time to write his notes, because he spent a lot of time over the next few months of his life travelling by boat. And, obviously then, as you will learn in the upcoming podcasts, he spent the remainder of his life wandering Arabia. Occasional trips to Britain, often driving by car across country. Even in his early 70s, he was still driving from London to Riyadh, an extraordinary man. So Philby had plenty of time to reflect on his Heart of Arabia journey, and we also now are at the point where we too are starting to reflect on what the last 28 days have meant for us. And I know that Alan and Anna and Reem have spent a bit of time thinking about that they will share with you in a series of short messages that follow.